Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something really transformative. It's about the power our words have, and this idea of mindful communication. We're really here to help you navigate that landscape, both the conversations you have out loud and, well, the ones inside your head, too, hopefully creating more connection, less friction.
Yeah, exactly. And our guide for this is Barbara Ann Kiffer's book, What Would Buddha Say? It's got like 3,501 teachings on communicating mindfully. It really offers this amazing blueprint for understanding how words can harm or heal.
Mm.
And not just talking, right? It covers everything, texts, emails, social media, all of it.
Right. So our mission really in this deep dive is to pull out the most useful bits, the things that can genuinely help you communicate with more kindness, more compassion, consideration, respect. It's all about, hurting each other less and actually helping each other more. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's unpack this.
Okay, so at its core, this idea of right speech, which Kipfer details, it's presented as, well, a really vital part of Buddha's Eightfold Path to Enlightenment. And it's not just about being, polite. It's deeper. It's a commitment to speaking with real intention, with integrity. Think of it like a framework for building wisdom, ethical behavior, mental discipline. It really underlines that mindful communication isn't just what we say. It's about how our words fit into that bigger journey towards clarity, towards peace. So definition-wise, it means avoiding lying, sure, but also divisive speech, abusive language, crude stuff, even just like pointless chatter. And instead, cultivating speech that's truthful, helpful, kind, timely, gentle, spoken with a friendly heart, aiming for harmony or healing. It expresses dignity, respect, simplicity.
That idea of words being a path, that really stands out. The book hammers home how powerful words are. It says our lives can literally be seen as one word following another, one sentence after another. And then it connects the inner and outer dialogue. Inner dialogue shapes our outer dialogue. And even saying we become our words, what does that really mean, practically speaking? It feels quite profound.
Oh, it absolutely is. When Kipfer says we become our words, it's this stark reminder, isn't it? That inner monologue, that self-talk we all have. It's not just background noise. It's actively shaping who we think we are, what we believe we can do, and, yeah, ultimately how we act. So if our identity is kind of woven from these words, well, are we using threads of self-criticism or self-compassion? That's the question it pushes us towards.
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it. So if that internal chat is so potent, how does it ripple outwards? The book makes this bold claim, something like, your every utterance is heard more closely, interpreted more quickly, acted on more directly than any other actions. That makes communication sound never neutral. It's either creating compassion, love, and harmony, or suffering and violence. Do we really grasp the long-term impacts, like day to day?
Probably far less than we should, honestly. That point really challenges how casually we treat speech sometimes. It's saying every word has this energetic weight. It influences the immediate moment, sure, but also shapes relationships, maybe even collective thinking over time. It's basically a call for profound accountability. Our words are actions with real consequences. We need to be as mindful of them as any other big thing we do.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact of spoken words, even the inner stuff. But communication, it's the two-way street, right? And the book argues pretty strongly that the first key isn't speaking, it's listening. How we listen. Let's unpack that.
You're absolutely right. Deep listening gets huge emphasis in the source material. It states it works hand in hand with what it calls loving speech.
Hmm.
And mindful listening, well, it means paying acute attention to each happening, each action, each word. It's about getting free from internal distractions, quieting that internal noise so you can actually understand the whole message and the person delivering it. The book flat out says one reason we listen poorly is that our own internal noise is just so loud, so turbulent, it masks what others are saying.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And it gives some really practical, maybe even counterintuitive tips, like asking open-ended questions, sure. But also, this one was interesting. If someone rejects what you say, don't argue, don't try to explain. Just listen until they find something wrong with their own objections. How does being passive work better than debating?
Well, passive might not be quite the right word. It's more like actively creating space. It's transformative because it shifts the whole dynamic. It stops being a battle of egos, right? And becomes about genuine understanding. When you stop arguing and really tune in without filtering it through your own stories and assumptions, what the book calls the imprisoning frame, you create that space. And often, when someone hears themselves articulate their own objections fully, without interruption or defense, sometimes they hear the flaws themselves. It's about letting them have their own aha moment, not forcing yours onto them, and giving someone your full attention, your eye contact. The book calls that a precious gift. Apparently, most people would rather be interrupted than feel like someone's just pretending to listen. So authentic presence, that kind of listening, becomes this compassionate, loving form of right speech itself.
Okay. So that ties into pauses, that attentive presence. And this deep dive also makes a really strong case for silence, the wisdom of silence. It asks this pointed question. Is what you want to say an improvement over maintaining silence? That's tough. We tend to want to fill the gaps, don't we?
We really do. And the book talks about noble silence as a way to empty, cleanse, heal, and renew the heart and mind. It says straight up, being silent is better than speech that is not true or useful. And there wasn't that old saying too, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. It really challenges our default setting of just talking. It suggests that talking too much is quite often the result of the fear of silence. We feel that uncomfortable void, that fear or anxiety, just with words. Noise.
Filling the void out of fear. Yeah, that resonates. We've all done that, right? In awkward moments or when we feel insecure. But the book says words born of silence are words of peace and meaning, compassion and care. So how do we actually cultivate that? That kind of powerful, deliberate silence, especially when emotions are high, anger, frustration.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. It really starts with just noticing that urge to react instantly. Silence, in this context, it's not empty, it's full. It's a space you create for reflection before you respond. Just taking that pause, even a breath, can let the initial emotional wave settle a bit. It prevents that impulsive, maybe regrettable word from escaping. It fundamentally links the quality of our communication to our inner state.
Which brings us right to those difficult emotions, especially anger. The book uses this really vivid image. Anger is like picking up hot coals with your bare hands and trying to throw them at the person you're angry at. Who gets burned first? Oof.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Because it instantly shows how self-destructive anger can be when it's expressed badly. It hurts us first. And a really critical insight from Kipfer is that anger distorts the truth. It literally stops us from seeing good things in other people when we're caught up in it. So the advice is, be quiet for a moment until the right words arise by themselves. And it reminds us, look, feeling angry isn't wrong in itself. It's expressing it hurtfully or unproductively. That's the problem. So it really pushes for cultivating compassion and just observing those negative thoughts when irritation or frustration pops up.
Observing, not reacting. Easier said than done when someone criticizes you or you're just really irritated. The book does offer some concrete steps, though. Can you share some of the more practical, maybe surprising techniques it suggests for handling those moments?
Sure. For just everyday irritation, it suggests something really simple. Put a little half smile on your face. Sounds maybe a bit silly, but it can actually subtly shift your internal state. Try it. And another technique is reframing. Ask yourself, what am I wanting right now? What's actually wrong with what I have? It pulls you out of blaming something external and brings the focus back inside. When you're facing criticism, the advice is kind of radical. Accept it. Whether it feels justified or not in the moment, just accept it. It stops that immediate defensive reaction. And for self-criticism, which so many of us struggle with, the idea is learn from the mistake, okay, but stop beating yourself up. Recognize that inner critic is just tearing you down. It's not actually helping. The key is always observation, seeing the thoughts without getting tangled up in them.
And this isn't just abstract theory, is it? The book does a great job applying these ideas everywhere. Maybe instead of listing all the areas, we can zoom in on a couple where mindful communication feels especially needed, like our digital lives and family.
Oh, definitely. Those are huge. For digital stuff, emails, text the advice feels incredibly relevant today with this pressure for instant replies. The book says, point blank, if you get an upsetting email, wait before responding. That pause, it's everything. It creates that space between the trigger and your reaction, lets the emotion cool down so reason can step in. And before hitting send on a text, it suggests this checklist. Is it true? Is it necessary? Does it need to be said right now? Is it kind? That's a pretty good filter, isn't it?
Yeah.
It also specifically warns against sending messages when you're annoyed or irritated or using social media for gossip, which feels like a real plea for, digital decency in a way.
Totally. And then family. It's often where we let our guard down the most, maybe take things for granted. But the book insists the quality of our communications with family members should be extremely high because we value them. What are some of the unique challenges and maybe the rewards of trying to practice right speech with the people closest to us, especially kids?
Yeah, the challenge with family is exactly that familiarity. It can breed carelessness in speech. We think, oh, they know me, or they know I didn't mean it like that. But the book flips that. It says because they're so important, our communication there should be the highest quality. It encourages really mindful speaking and listening, especially with children, including them, valuing their views. It notes that soft words help children flourish, build their self-worth. The reward is nurturing those deep bonds, making sure our loved ones don't feel overlooked or taken for granted. It really just reinforces that deep listening and loving speech, they belong everywhere. And by practicing it, you can actually build a culture of kindness in your family, your workplace, your community.
So it really all seems to circle back to the internal, doesn't it? External communication starts inside. The book says how you speak to yourself can have a powerful effect on what happens in your life. It stresses that right speech isn't just outward. It's also about that inner dialogue, the endless speech going on inside your head. So what tools does it offer for managing that constant stream?
Well, it strongly encourages self-reflection. Practices like journaling are highlighted. Writing things down can help you process thoughts, emotions. It helps you unburden yourself, as the book puts it, chronicling your feelings, memories, thoughts. It allows you to kind of move past troubles instead of just ruminating. And there's this key idea that you are not your thoughts. You can learn to just observe them, watch them float by without getting hooked. That separation, that's where the power lies. It gives you space to choose your internal responses.
And underlying all of this seems to be mindfulness, meditation. The source says meditation increases your ability to concentrate more deeply and longer, and it helps you be less anxious when hearing ideas that differ from yours. So is that the foundation? How does that practice ultimately let us pause before speaking and, like you mentioned earlier, maybe even get to a point where we don't regret what we say?
I think it absolutely is the foundation. Because meditation is fundamentally about cultivating awareness. You're training your attention again and again. And by doing that, you get better at noticing impulses, those arising thoughts, those quick emotional reactions before they translate into words. That pause, that mindful gap we talked about, that's where choice lives. That's the space where you can consciously apply these principles of right speech, choosing words that are true, kind, helpful, instead of just being carried away by the knee-jerk reaction.
Wow. Okay. So we've really journeyed through these powerful teachings on right speech, the impact of our words, the value of silence, how it all plays out in different parts of our lives.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how it connects mindfulness directly to love. There's a line, mindfulness practice is the foundation of your love. You cannot love properly and deeply without mindfulness. And it suggests that consistently practicing this, saying what's true, but in an honest and loving way, over and over, it can create real deep changes, not just for you, but for the people you interact with constantly.
So here's something to think about. If, like the book says, you are what you say, not just out loud, but in that inner chatter too, then what words are you choosing to become? How can we cultivate both our inner and outer talk to build more connection, more healing, more peace in our own lives, and maybe ripple it out? This deep dive really reminds us, doesn't it, that it takes clarity, real understanding to stop just reacting, to actually pause.
And maybe just to leave you with one final thought from the source, something that really sums up the essence of all this. Better than 1,000 words mindlessly spoken is one word of truth that helps bring peace to the listener.
Powerful. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep reflecting, keep practicing, and yeah, keep communicating mindfully.